Gardening with Daddy Pete today. It is a kind of a cloudy day here in North Carolina today, but the temperatures are wonderful. I think we're going to have a few more of that get out in the gardening days, or a little bit of rain on Sunday here, but seems like it's going to be turning cold again. But again, not enough to stop the gardening. Now, if this is your first time listening to Gardening with Daddy Pete, I would invite you to go to our website, which is daddypetes.com, and you can pull up the front page. You can go back and click on, we do archive all of our podcasts, and you can go, we even have some YouTube videos, and at Daddy Pete, our motto is we help you grow, and these are some of the tools that are free to you. Just click on them and use them. Also, there's a place on there if you have a question. By all means, send that question in and we will answer you. And we'll try to go over the same topic on the podcast. Now, today is exactly what we're doing. It's because of some of the calls that I've had over the last few weeks, people asking about this, and it's growing berries for your home production. And you've heard me talk about this before. One of the best tools that you can use is your state extension service, or go to your local extension office. And they have the worlds of knowledge. It's free to you and helps you to pick the right varieties, the right planting times, what your soil needs to look like, and etc. on there. Things that we're going to get into over the next few weeks. Today is blueberry or berry production. And there's many different types of berries that you can grow in your home gardens and even add to your landscape. And the reason I picked the blueberry today is I seem like between blueberries and strawberries, I do have the most questions or calls about growing those. So we're going to do that today, and I'm actually going to use the NC extension page on blueberry production for local sales and small pick-your-own operators. Now, this is more geared towards business operators, but this is a world of good information that will, every bit of it, will be helpful to you growing your own bushes and your plants at home. So if this is simple, if you want to follow along, it's real easy to do. Just go into the NC State Extension, punch in blueberry production, and when you get to the list on your Google page, it'll say blueberry production for local sales and small pick-your-own operators. So we're going to start off, and I'm kind of going to skim by through this today, and usually I like to do a lot of my own notes and all, but to be honest with you, they have done such a good job on this. I thought we'd go through this. Now, it may be a little lengthy, and this is going to be part one of our berry growing podcast. The thing is, we're going to do blueberries today. There's still a world of different berries and vines that goes in to your berry production, fruit production for home gardeners as yourself. And one good thing about it here at Daddy Pete, we do have a soil or a soil amendment that's going to help you. Blueberries probably are the most tedious, but yet the easiest to grow, with just a couple things of knowledge that you need to. And we'll get into that here in a second. One thing that I did learn as I was doing this, I didn't understand that North Carolina is one of the largest producers of highbush blueberries. Now, keep in mind the term highbush, because we're going to get on into that just a little bit more and talk to you about the different varieties of blueberry bushes and what grows good in your area, and maybe not will grow at all, but grows well in some other areas. Although the large-scale commercial production is most limited to southeastern North Carolina, blueberries can be grown anywhere in the state if the right blueberry species and proper soil modifications are used. These are the two things that is the most important thing that we can talk about today. Let me go over that again, because in North Carolina and the regions next to us, like we service Virginia, South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, around our area here, this will just about adhere to all you guys too. So again, you may want to check with your local extension to tweak the times or the variety just a little bit, but it's all basically going to be the same things as far as preparation for your soil and varieties. So just whichever one. And the reason we picked this is because of cold hardiness. When we've got temperatures that's going below 10 degrees, we use a different species. When we got blueberries, we want them to plant in a drier or a climate that doesn't get as much rain, and that's another different species. So let's talk about prepping the place for your blueberry bush to start with, what you're kind of looking at. And one thing that we need to look at first is your soil. Now, blueberries is like, they're a whole lot like an azalea. We have a lot of native grown azaleas in North Carolina, then we've had so many different species of azaleas out. But when you're prepping the soil for an azalea, if you've grown them in the past, you're basically looking at just about the same thing with a blueberry bush. Blueberries like a soil pH between 4.5 and 5 on your. Now that is pretty low if you were going to grow vegetables, whatever. Most vegetable gardens we try to get at 6 to 6.5. So you're below that. It says blueberries require a lower pH than many small fruit crops. A soil test is highly recommended before planting to determine the pH and the amount of humic matter. Okay, here's two things you want to do. Now, the first thing, if you've got the clay soil like we do here in North Carolina and the Piedmont, the red clay or clay type soils, or if you have the sandy soils that you see on towards the beach area of North Carolina. And then again, we go back and we got the mountains. So we've actually got 3 different ranges here. And again, that follows suit with South Carolina and with Virginia also. So what you want to do is make sure you have a lot of humic matter in that soil, and also that you add drainage to it too. Now with the sands, you'll have the drainage, but in the mountain area and the Piedmont area of North Carolina, you'll need to consider drainage. So the first thing to do is this. Pick your spot that you want to plant your blueberries in. Now that spot needs to be kind of raised up, full sun, and then you want to go in and amend the soil. Keep in mind it said take a soil test before planting. Now, we already know we've got the clay or we've got the sand or we've got the mountain soil. We already know that. We know that we're going to have to amend one way or the other. You're going to have to add an organic matter or a compost in the sand. You're going to need to do a amendment in the clay with an organic matter and a good pine bark fine. And one reason you want to use a mix that has pine bark fines in it is pine bark fines usually have a pH anywhere from 4 to 4.5, so it's going to help build that soil where we can get that correct pH for the blueberries between 4.5 and 5.0. And that's where we want to stay with this. And it's a rabbiteye will let you go just a little over 5, but the highbush really likes that. So anyhow, that's what we want to do. Go in and build your soil up, do your additives to it, till it in, get your bed ready, then go to your local extension office if you'd like to, because they offer a free service. You can go, they will give you a kit with instructions on how to take a soil sample. You want to take it at different parts of the beds if you're planting a wider bed, and then it does give you instructions that you can mail it off, or you can take it back in to the extension office and they'll be glad to mail it off for you and you'll get the test back. Usually you get them back within 10 to 12 days. So this is something that you need to do. If you're going to plant, planning on doing blueberries, you're going to do strawberries, raspberries, blackberries, even grapevines, muscadine vines, you need to plan ahead on this, get the soil prep right, get the pH right, and for whatever you're planting, then do your planting. So that's a good thing to do. Get your soil pH right. Once you've done that, if your soil happens to come back and the pH is not close to that, there's certain things you can do to adjust it. And I'm going to tell you exactly what you can do on that. Let's just say that your soil pH comes back at 6 or 6.5, like it would be good for a vegetable garden. Rabbiteye and both your highbush blueberries use about, if you want to lower the pH for like sandy soils, for instance, from a 6 to a 5, you want to use about 1 pound or 2.5 cups for 100 square feet, and this is sandy soils, to lower the unit of pH by 1. And what you'd be using on that would be like a organic sulfur. That would help lower that down, which again would do the same thing if you've already amended. You could use that same formula to lower the pH by 1 point for your clay soils. Now, it could take just a little bit more, but again, that's a good place to start, and you can do that. Now, if you do have the time, say you're building the bed now, you're going to plant this fall, this is February, you may want to just try organic matter and pine bark vines together. At Daddy Pete's, we have a planting mix that is exactly that mix. It is a mix of our compost and our aged pine bark vines, which does great for the mountain area and for the Piedmont area. If you're doing that for the sand, we recommend that you use our Daddy Pete composted calendar. Let me see if my tongue can get caught up today. Blah, 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 blah. And that would work well for the sand. The drainage is already there in the sand, therefore we don't need to add the pine bark. The pine bark is added in the clay soils and our mountain soils to make sure that we do proper drainage. Blueberries do like moisture, but they don't like to be too wet. So we need to provide drainage for the root system. Okay? Now, so that's a good way that we need to achieve that. And you can go on later if we need to raise the pH up. And of course, naturally, we can use dolomitic lime for that. And your soil sample will give you how much you need per 100 square feet. If you need to raise it, they will recommend a dolomitic lime. If you need to lower it, they're going to recommend most times a agricultural sulfur, and they will give you that. So a soil test is worth its weight in gold, just to give you an idea. Now, we were talking about highbush, and you just heard me mention rabbiteye. These are two of the types of species that you can plant. And again, planting times now, February, March, that would be what we consider late winter, needs to be done now. And you can do that with a bare root. You can still buy the blueberry plants in a lot of places, bare root, or you can buy them that's already potted up. And now, but no later than about, in this area, mid-March, heading toward the last of March, that needs to be the cutoff time for planting. After that, we need to wait until the fall season to plant again. So you still have time. This is the third week in February, so you still have time to go ahead and get that bed ready. Go ahead and get your plants done, and if you buy bare roots, just stick them in some Daddy Pete's nursery blend, put them in some planting mix, just throw them in a pot for now. That way you keep the roots wet and keep going until you get your bed ready and get ready to go. The two species are highbush, and rabbiteye. They are two totally different species, but the blueberries basically taste about the same off of them. In the coastal areas and in the mountain areas, the highbush does a better job. Highbush blueberry plants will take a lower temperature than the rabbiteye. And when you get down to around 10 degrees or below, that does tend to freeze out or harm the rabbiteye varieties. Whereas the highbush in the mountains would do well on that. On the coastal part, where you still have some moisture, you still have some rain, you have the sand, in that area, it still does well there. The highbush does well there. But in the Piedmont area, where the summers are hotter, they're drier, the clay type soils, even though we've amended them, the rabbiteye tends to do better in the dry or drought conditions and heat. So you want to make sure that those are the reasons, and that you do look to make sure you're buying that type of blueberry plant. Now, some of those varieties I'm going to give you there on the different ones here that I think would be a good, and some I've used, some I hadn't used before, and some I do have. Just for instance, in the coastal plain area, now if you look towards the coast, here's some good highbush that you can use. And the varieties of those are, and you can get this back on our webpage, or you can go to the NC State Extension, like I said earlier, and grab these off. But in your coastal plain area, for the highbush, varieties would be Duke, Jersey, Southern highbush, and O'Neill, New Hanover, Legacy. Now, keep that Southern highbush in mind just a second, but all those are tried and true varieties that grow good and produces a lot of fruit. In your coastal plain, Piedmont, and foothills, which would be considered a drier upland soil, you can use the rabbiteye variety, and some of these I've used, like the Climax, the Premier. I've grown both of those and do love them. Centurion's a good one. Columbus, Ira, Tiff Blue. I personally like a Tiff Blue also. Powder Blue is a good variety. Onslow, and here we go, we've got Southern highbush again. Okay, the Southern highbush, let me explain to you just a little bit what that is. The Southern highbush is actually a cross between the rabbiteye and the highbush variety, which does work well in this area for what all's been. I don't know how many years that they've been on the market, several, but so far I'm hearing a lot of good things about it. So you can get a little bit bigger bush that way, and one that is more cold hardy for our area. And for the areas of where that it's drier and hotter, again, that tends to help that bush survive better through that. So it's kind of a win-win for both areas. Another one for our area is New Hanover and Legacy. Now, the mountains. Mountains above 2,500 feet. You want to go back to the highbush varieties of Duke, Sunrise, Okata, Blu-ray, Blue Crop, Toro, Berkeley, and Jersey. These are all good varieties for that. Now, in planting blueberries and harvesting blueberries, the good part about that is you can look for the average rabbiteye variety and even the highbush. When it starts bearing, you're looking at anywhere from 10 up to 25 pounds of fruit per year or per season. And I don't know if you guys have ever weighed blueberries, but that's a lot of blueberries. One thing about blueberries that I like, what I do with my bush is I pick them, I bring them in, wash them off, let them dry. I just pop them in a gallon freezer bag, ziplock them shut, throw them in the freezer, and I pull them out if we want to make muffins. A lot of times I have oatmeal in the morning. I like to throw blueberries in it. I just take them straight out of the freezer, throw them in my hot oatmeal, stir them right up, ready to go. You can use them in smoothies that you've got anywhere from 10 to 25 pounds. And to be honest with you, I would say that 15 to 18 pounds is going to be a realistic harvest every year. But again, that's a lot. But you can freeze those. You can can them. People make jellies and jams out of them. So there's a lot of different things you can do with your blueberries. And we're going to learn more about that when we talk about the strawberries and blackberries and the raspberries and so forth, different things that we do. But the main thing is that we get the foundation right on these blueberries, because it's something that people love. Great antioxidant, great for your health. I have actually, since I planted my bush, I don't know, my bush is probably 20 years ago. It's amazing. My grandkids love those things, and everybody else's. They love to run and pick those blueberries. So it's just amazing to watch them. And I think they eat more than they actually pick and bring in. And that's the joy of just watching the bush being there for the kids and grandkids to enjoy it. Now, I will say this. One other thing that does like blueberries are birds. So when your blueberries start to ripen, you want to get a net that has about a 1-inch square weave to it, throw over the bush, and that does keep the birds from robbing all of your blueberries. But these varieties, and they do come in at different times, like a highbush will come in real earlier in the spring, like late May, early June, where most of our rabbiteye varieties here will start in mid-July, and then some of them will go on into 1st of September. So, in doing your planting, if you want to mix up some of these, and I'll tell you what my mix is. I've got the Climax and the Tiff Blue and the Powder Blue. And that way I kind of keep blueberries coming on, for that whole period, about the middle of July, until around the 1st of September. So, and that's the good thing about it. And naturally, what do you do with all those blueberries? Well, with kids and grandkids and neighbors, you don't have any problem getting rid of the blueberries. And believe it or not, most people do like to pick them. So I think they like to eat just as much. I know when I was a kid, when we had the strawberry patches, I think I ate as many as I picked. But again, that is the joy of being a gardener. And here at Daddy Pete, that's the fun that I get when I hear from you guys and you're telling me, hey, I tried this, it works, oh, what a taste. When you pick that tomato and you take it straight from your raised bed or from your garden and you go in and you slice it up and you have it for dinner that night, or you had it for lunch and you made that good old tomato sandwich where you cut one of those big heirlooms open and made it about a 1/2 inch thick slice of tomato and slopped your little mayonnaise on that thing and slammed the bread together with a little salt and pepper. I mean, that's eating, it's just what it is. And, when you pick that first, your first round of fresh green beans and you take them in and you feed your family, it's not full of preservatives. You know that it hadn't rode all over the country in the back of some truck. You know it hadn't been sprayed with some chemicals you don't want to feed your family. Same thing with the blueberries. I mean, when you buy them in the store, you know for a fact they've rode to the trucks. 9 times out of 10, they've been sprayed with something to keep them preserved till they could get them sold. So these are the things you could do. And another thing that blueberry bush adds to your landscape, one of the most beautiful and colorful bushes you can have in the fall. The leaves on them turn this orange red, and they are just like a ball of fire. They're beautiful. So you not only do you get the fruit out of it, you can add it to your landscape, and you can have this beautiful color. You've got the leaves in the summertime are like a bluish green, kind of like a little tint on them. It's just a different color that it draws your eye to it. But then it shows off again when fall comes. So not only is a plant that you benefit from the fruit, you can also benefit from the beauty of it being in your landscape. So keep in mind, you want to pick a place, and it's all right to raise it up a little bit. Blueberries do like drainage. They love full sun. Now, if you don't have a place where they can get full sun, give them as much full sun as you can. One thing with blueberries is it's good to plant at least 2 bushes. That way you make sure that they do pollinate between each other, and you will have more fruit. Keep in mind, without the bees, without pollination, fruit's not going to happen. So, unlike other things. Well, I kind of hope that has got you thinking, and if you take time to go to, it doesn't make any difference which state you're in. If you're around this area here, whether it's Virginia, Tennessee, Georgia, South Carolina, take the time to go to the North Carolina state extension page. Look up the growing blueberries. Go through, and you can look through the article I did, and it gives you a little bit more knowledge on that. If you don't have time to do that, you can always go to our website, which is daddypete's.com. Ask that question. I will get back to you, and we'll be doing more extensive on this in the upcoming podcast. What we'll probably do over the next few weeks is we're going to do, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to do something on our blackberries, which is, by the way, is wild and native around here. And then we have a lot of varieties too, like one right off mine of the thornless variety is the Art 45, which has become very popular, a longer blackberry, no thorns. But what I found when most of the time when the thorns are removed, I don't know if that has anything to do with it or not, or the berry's bigger, the flavor's not quite as robust as it is on the wilder varieties. Now, again, your blackberry's going to be a little smaller, but the taste is going to be more vibrant. But you can grow the wild ones yourself too, cultivate them, and if you don't mind the thorns or the briars on them, that's a great crop too. These are the things we're going to be getting into. Strawberries, there's so many different varieties of strawberries, ever-bearing, which would actually produce a crop twice a year. We'll talk about that. And again, it takes a different planting. One more thing I want to remind you of, take the time, go to our website, look at our different products, because when you're fixing these beds or you're fixing your garden, you're working on your lawn, maybe you plant in pots, maybe you do raised beds, just whatever that you're doing. Maybe you're in the mulching, and that's one thing that your blueberries are going to need too, is a good pine bark mulch that's laid around them. Again, that helps keep the moisture in the summertime, doesn't let too much get in, and it also gives it a blanket for the winter and helps keep those roots a little warmer. So keep in mind when you do your mulching, you want to use a pine bark type of mulch system to do that with. Again, at Daddy Pete's, we have the soil enhancer, which are aged pine bark fines. If you want a finer look, you could use those. Or we do have the pine bark mulch. We have the pine bark mini nuggets. And the reason that I keep saying pine bark is pine bark, again, if you remember when we first started today, pine bark has a pH of about 4 to 4.5. And we want to keep that pH low for these blueberry bushes. Again, for your azalea bushes. And there's several other things. As we get on into these series, we'll be talking about the pruning of all the different ones, whether it be the blueberry or the blackberry, whether it be the grapes, the muscadines. But these are all berries that can be grown at home for your family to enjoy. Again, I do appreciate you guys listening and tuning in to us here at Daddy Pete's. You know, we've been hanging around here at Daddy Pete Farm since 1907. I hadn't put in that whole time, but even though I may look like it, but we've developed quite a variety of organic products for our gardeners, and you know, we do have that motto, we help you grow. Reason being is we like to treat people like we like to be treated, and you know, our way of living around here and always has been, and I think it's this way everywhere. You know, neighbors help neighbors, and that's the part that we don't want to see gone in our country, in our neighborhoods. And so we actually did take on the motto, we help you grow, and that's exactly what we mean to do. So if you do have a question, go to our webpage, ask a question, leave a comment. I do answer those, by the way, and if we can help you, again, that's what we're here for. If you got a question about one of our mixes, or which one to use in your plantings, believe me, I answer those every day, and I'm glad to get the calls, and we want to thank you for using our products. So, and just kind of a little thought there to keep that in mind if you do have a problem. Use your county extension, get that soil testing done, regardless if you're doing blueberries, gardens, grass, lawn, whatever. That's what they're there for. It's a free service to you. Make sure you use it. Well, until next time, we'll get back on different berries. Then I'm going to wish you some good, green, happy days of gardening. And until the next time.